Okay, going back to our real world application, we put these into our calculator in the last lecture. The data is the following. The data in the following table is from 2005 and was gathered from the Earth Trends website. And we have a set of countries, and for each country we have the average length of schooling, which we put in one list in the calculator, and the life expectancy in years that we put in another list in the calculator. And if you didn't do that, you may want to pause the video and do that now. We labeled average length of schooling the X variable and life expectancy the Y variable. We've shown that there's a positive correlation between average length of schooling and life expectancy for a country's population. Okay, when we plugged this in and we looked at our scatter diagram, it definitely was moving upward from left to right. The points were moving upward from left to right. The data pairs in the previous table represent data from a random sample of 12 countries. Use the sample to develop a regression line to predict the life expectancy given the average length of schooling of a country. Okay, so there's our first task. We're going to use the sample data from the chart to come up with a regression line to be used as a predictor for life expectancy if we're given the average length of schooling of a country. Then we're going to use this line to predict the life expectancy to the nearest tenth for a country whose average length of schooling is 15 years, and we're also going to do it for 17 years. Graph the scatter plot and regression line together, and I will show you how to do that on the calculator. So which variable, schooling years or life expectancy, do we want to predict? This is the dependent variable. So what is the value that we're looking to predict? Are we looking to predict the number of years of schooling, or are we looking to predict life expectancy? Well, we're looking to predict life expectancy. It makes sense to try to predict the life expectancy for a given length of schooling. Okay, so given a particular length of schooling, you can predict the life expectancy on average for the country. Now, just remember that this life expectancy it's not directly related to a single person's length of schooling. So going to school for many years doesn't mean that that person will live a long life. What it means is that in a country where people generally on average go to school for many years, that country's population on average has a longer life expectancy. So it's not a particular person, but it's for the general population. So perhaps things like education would influence the medical care people receive, and because medical care is better, when education is better, people live longer. So it's not about a single person, it's more about the entire population. Okay, so the values to be predicted, the dependent variable is life expectancy, and that is y, the y variable. The values that are given are the independent variable, that's the length of schooling, and that is represented by x. Okay, so we have our two variables, which means that imagine that you have the vertical axis for the scatter diagram and you have the horizontal axis for the scatter diagram. It means that on the horizontal axis we have x, the length of schooling. So from small to large, we're going to label numbers for the length of schooling. And on the vertical axis we have life expectancy. So from small to large, we're going to label numbers on the vertical axis for life expectancy. And then we saw when we did this on the calculator that our points generally moved upward from left to right. Okay, the formulas for finding A and B are very lengthy, and to avoid errors that can occur by doing the calculations by hand, we're going to use our calculator to find A and B. Okay, so we already have our x values and y values in L1 and L2. So we're going to open up the calculator again. Okay, this is what we had done last time. If you're at your home screen, you're going to press Stat. You're going to go over to the Calc menu. Going to go down to number 4. You hit Enter. X list, you should specify the list where your X values are. Those are years of schooling. Y list, that's life expectancy. Put that in L2. Frequency list, leave it blank. Store Reg EQ, leave it blank. Go down and press Calculate. Hit Enter. This is the same procedure that we went through to figure out the value for R, the correlation coefficient. The same process is going to allow us to arrive at values for A and B. So A, 2.7878448828. B, 29.44913793. Okay, so instead of doing that long calculation using those formulas, we can easily just put it into our calculator and arrive at the values for A and B using the calculator's ln reg AX plus B. So we're going to let A be the coefficient of X. So this value would become the coefficient of X, and let B be the y-intercept. So we're going to place the value for B right here in the equation. So then we'll have an equation of the form y equals AX plus B. Okay, so the values that you get for A and B can be rounded to 2 decimal places. So if we look at what they came out to be, A rounded to 2 decimal places is 2.79. B rounded to 2 decimal places is 29.45. So then our equation becomes 2.79x plus 29.45 equals y prime. Okay, when you have your equation, you can answer those questions on making predictions regarding life expectancy. Okay, so the first one we were asked to predict was, what is the life expectancy for a country if the average length of schooling is 15 years? And then we're going to do it for 17 years. Well, remember that average length of schooling was the variable x. So if the average length of schooling, if the variable x is 15, predict the life expectancy, predict the value for y prime. So basically you're going to be plugging in the value for x, 15 for x here, and you're going to be calculating it to get a value for y prime. And you're going to do the same thing for 17. 17, average length of schooling is x, plug it in, and then get a value for y prime, the life expectancy, the predicted life expectancy. Okay, so how you would do this is basically multiplication. When you let x be 15, you've got 2.79 times 15 plus 29.45. Okay, so that's what you're putting into your calculator. 2.79 times 15 plus 29.45, and when you do it, evaluate it, you should come up with 71.3. That's the predicted value for y prime. That's the predicted life expectancy. So if we were to put this into a sentence, we could say that the predicted life expectancy for a country where the average length of schooling is 15 years is about 71.3 years. Okay, this is the average life expectancy, predicted life expectancy, if the average length of schooling is 15 years. Okay, so let me show you how to do that on the calculator if you're not sure. You're going to quit whatever screen you're at. You're going to press 2.79 times 15 plus 29.45 71.3. Okay, you're going to do the same thing for 17 years. So 2.79 times 17 plus 29.45, 76.71. Okay, so plugging in 17, and here's what the math looks like on paper. You're going to just let x be 17, so plug it in here, and it's multiplication. 2.79 times 17 plus 29.45, and when rounded to the nearest tenth, 76.9. Okay, now you will be told on web work or an exam how many places to round to. So this is rounded to the nearest tenth. And putting this into words, the predicted life expectancy for a country where the average length of schooling is 17 years is about 76.9 years. That's the predicted life expectancy. So remember our equation, 2.79x plus 29.45. Okay, there's a graphical representation of it as well. It's a line. And when we graph it on our calculator, we should be able to see what it looks like alongside our scatter diagram.